So now we are going to be studying Bhagavad Gita for next 3 days. Of course, the whole of Gita has about 700 verses and within 18 chapters. That is not easy to do for sure. So what we have done is we have selected about 25 verses from different chapters of the Gita, and we have selected in a way that you get a good idea of what the whole Gita is talking about. Now, when you hear Bhagavad Gita, and then sometimes you say, you also probably may hear that we are teachers of Vedanta. So, and you may be wondering what is the connection between Vedanta and Bhagavad Gita. So, I will just tell you very briefly what is the connection. Vedanta, the word, literally means what appears at the end of the Veda. So Vedas are certain books, and literally they mean book of knowledge, right? And book of knowledge about what? It's something, the knowledge that otherwise you cannot get with your five senses. If you could get the knowledge with your five senses, you don't need another book, right? So it is a book of knowledge which gives you knowledge which you otherwise cannot get with your normal five senses. So we need to figure out what is that knowledge that you can't get with your five senses. That's okay. But, and within this book of knowledge, there are two parts. The first part is called the Karma Kanda, and the second part is called Uttara Kanda. So what is the first part? The first part of this book talks about many different prayers, rituals, and a different kind of conduct that a human being is expected to have in order to have connection with the universe. So that is the first part of the Vedas, and hopefully it helps you to kind of relate to the universe, ask for help when you need it in whatever you are doing. So that's the first portion. Now, what is the need for the second portion? So the second portion talks about something totally different. Because the vision of the Veda is that as an individual, you can get many things in this world, right? You can get money, you can get power, you can get success in a way that you become famous, right? And you can have nice family, you can have nice children, you can have many nice things, right? Nice cars, nice mobile, everything you can have, right? But it's still, the search is on. The search doesn't end. Search for what does not end? The search for fulfillment does not end. You can surround yourself by most beautiful things, but you as a human being is still searching. And searching for what? Searching for what we call lasting fulfillment. So all the other pursuits you pursue because they do give you fulfillment. It's not that they don't, because if they did not, then it's very easy for human beings to figure out that this is not useful for me. But they give you certain pleasure, they give you a certain engagement, they give you a certain sense of well-being for a while. But at the same time, what you are searching for is the lasting freedom from all sorts of lack, inadequacy, feeling small, limited, helpless. You want freedom from that. And you don't know that after getting all the things that you can hope for, you still kind of are still searching. So the second portion of the Vedas talk about that which is going to give you the lasting fulfillment. What? Is there a solution? Is there something which can give me the lasting fulfillment? That seems like a very big promise, right? It is not a small promise. And the biggest surprise is, what is that source of fulfillment? Where you never had imagined it could be. That is is even bigger surprise. The first surprise is that there is a solution, and the second surprise is what is the locus of that solution. So the words, what appears at the end of the Veda itself tells you where is the solution. The word, what appears at the end of the Veda is what we call Upanishads. Upanishads are what appears at the end portion of the Veda. And the name Upanishad itself indicates how the problem is solved. Right? So, every Sanskrit word comes from a root and it has prefixes and suffixes. I'm sure all of you Germans have a very rigorous language, so I'm sure you know a little bit of grammar. And I'm going to use little bit of this knowledge of grammar to make you see what Upanishad means. So therefore, the root word from which this word comes, Upanishad, is Sadlu. Sadlu, in the sense of, the meaning of that root is in the sense of, and it has three meanings. Something which helps you get rid of, that is the first meaning. The second meaning of the root is not only anything that you get rid of, it can always come back again, right? There is no guarantee that it will not come back, right? You try to get rid of the dust in the room and you leave it like this for 5 days, and then you come back and again it is all dusty. So that means you get rid of something, but it keeps coming back again, so you are stuck with that thing, and again you have to keep cleaning it. Here, the second root of the meaning is that not only it helps you get rid of, but it totally disintegrates, where it never comes back. That is the second root meaning. Something which helps you completely disintegrate. And the third root meaning is what? It helps you gain. So three meanings. One, it helps you get rid of. You understand, get rid of? Discard. The second is totally disintegrate. And the third is helps you gain. Now, you need to ask the question, what do I want to get rid of? Right? Because this Upanishad is going to help me get rid of. But I don't want to get rid of what? All the things that I love. Right? I want to get rid of only a few things. And what are those things? What do you want to get rid of?
Illness.
Huh?
Illness.
Illness. Wow. Oh. Okay. That's good. Illness. Right. What else?
Suffering.
Suffering. Wonderful. Right. So that means illness I want to get rid of because it causes suffering. So therefore, you want to get rid of suffering, any sense of lack, any sense of limitation, any sense of helplessness. That is what you want to get rid of, right? Now this is a promise that it will help you get rid of. But the so let's say illness causes you suffering, then when the illness goes, then what? The suffering goes for the time being, but the illness can always return, and again the suffering will start. So here there is a kind of a thing that it will disintegrate forever. Right? It is not like a temporary solution which will come back again. So it will help you totally disintegrate all the sufferings. That is the vision, right? And the third thing, by doing so, what will it help you gain? It will. What do you want to gain? Your search, why things don't feel complete in life. Contentment. So that means it helps you gain contentment or fulfillment, which doesn't just come and go, it is a lasting contentment or fulfillment. That's a huge promise. It seems like some kind of a, this people are trying to trick you to think that there is something which can give you all of this. It seems impossible. So therefore, the two prefixes are used what will give you that thing, and that there, the first meaning of the prefix is upa. Upa means near. Something which is near to you will give you all this. Wow. What is near to me? First of all, the near itself is a relative word. It's not an absolute word. Right? Near means compared to Cologne, Bonn is near. Compared to Bonn, this street is near. Compared to this street, this building is near. What is near? It is a relative word. So that means, what is that which is nearest and you can't get nearer? What is that thing which is nearest for everyone and you can't get nearer? Tell me. Riddle. Myself. So that means there is this knowledge of myself which will give me what? End of suffering, which will disintegrate forever, and it will help me gain the fulfillment. But I know myself. What is this kind of announcement? Knowing yourself, you will get all of this. You know yourself all along. Why do you need to come here and know yourself? All this while that you have been living your life, you have been living life without Upanishads, right? You know yourself. So this is why the second prefix, which is ni, upa, ni. You know yourself, but there is a possibility that you don't know yourself in a true light. That means that there is some kind of a mix-up. Some opinion that you have about yourself is maybe right, like I am, I exist, true. But there may be some opinion that you have about yourself which may not be based on facts. So what is this Upanishad? It makes you see yourself in a true light. Nishchayatmika, knowledge of something which is nearest to you, which is Atma, I. If you know your true nature, then all the suffering ends. And the suffering ends forever, and it makes you gain the fulfillment. So that is the promise of these Upanishads. And it makes you re-look at what is your true nature, and with a very sophisticated methodology, it helps you to examine what your true nature is, and shows you how each conclusion that you have made about your true nature, there is an error. So that is the book of Upanishad. Now, what is Bhagavad Gita? Bhagavad Gita is not technically part of the Vedas. It appears in a book called Mahabharata. Mahabharata is a very famous epic. Now, how is Bhagavad Gita, which appears in Mahabharata, related to Vedas, the Upanishads? In Bhagavad Gita, it's a dialogue between Lord Krishna. Krishna, we will see what its nature is. Lord Krishna and Arjuna. And what Lord Krishna talks to Arjuna and teaches about the nature of I is exactly identical with what is said in the Upanishads. This is why at end of every chapter of the Gita, it says, Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu Upanishadsu. This is what is said in Bhagavad Gita, which is also said in Upanishads. And what is the topic? There are two topics. Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastra. One is Brahma Vidya, which reveals your true nature, and the second is Yoga Shastra, which tells you how to somehow get proper understanding of this knowledge. every knowledge requires a certain amount of preparation. If you want to go and sit in PhD class of physics, and you may have a lot of interest, but already her eyes are she knows that she'll not get much, right? So when I was studying in college, I was studying economics, and there was one very good professor, and I went to his class thinking that I could, follow. And his economics at a PhD, because he taught us a class, but he was teaching PhD class, was all mathematics, and whole class I was sitting there not knowing what's going on. Because it was all formulas. So that means every knowledge, any advanced learning requires preparation. So that means even this knowledge of Atma, which promises to give you the final fulfillment, also requires preparation. So therefore, the book itself also tells you how to prepare yourself for this knowledge. So that means two topics: what is the true nature of I, and the second is how to prepare yourself to gain this knowledge. Now, because Bhagavad Gita has a lot of different frameworks for preparing yourself for the knowledge, it has become one of the most famous books in Indian philosophy. Because most of the time, when people come to spirituality, yes, they want to know the final truth of the nature of I and all that. That's wonderful. Yes, they want to know. But along with it, everybody wants to know, okay, I have my little life here. And I have challenges with my family, I have challenges with my boss, I have challenges with my kids, I have challenges with my emotions, I have all kinds of challenges. And what do I do from tomorrow, which will help me deal with all of these things better? That is a question that every human being has. So therefore, Bhagavad Gita spends a lot of time. The whole of Yoga Shastra is meant for how to prepare your mind in a way that you can handle your life well. Arjuna wanted to run away. It was too much for him, the situation. And Lord Krishna says, you have to stay there and do. It seems like the most difficult job, but you have to do it, but do it with a proper attitude. So therefore, it's all about attitudes, values, emotional life. All of that Bhagavad Gita talks about. So that's why it's one of the most relevant books. Now, before I go into the real teaching of the Gita, let me tell you a little story of Mahabharata, which I'm sure most of you know, but there is a purpose behind this story. I'm not just telling the story for the sake of telling it. I want you to know and appreciate well the series of situations that happens in a person's life which makes that person seek this knowledge. Right? And who is the protagonist here? The protagonist is, do you know what it means? No, the main character in the story. In this particular story, the protagonist, of course, is Lord Krishna, yes, but in this case, who's asking the question? Arjuna. So therefore, what happens to Arjuna's life which makes him at a certain point in his life ask the question, asks for this knowledge. So I will tell you briefly. There is, the story precedes the birth of Arjuna, series of events that happened. There was a king the kingdom was Hastinapura, and the king had two sons. One was, the elder one was Dhritarashtra, and the younger one was Pandu. Now, as a in a normal situation, who will become the king? The elder son will become the king, right? That is a normal rule. Now, in this case, Dhritarashtra was blind. And it was decided that in a kingdom, a blind king cannot rule well. Right? Because if you're blind, you're not able to see so many things, and then it's very difficult for you to rule. So therefore, the kingdom, the king will become the younger son will become the king. And the younger son's name was Pandu. Don't worry if you don't remember all the names, but the younger one becomes what? The king. Now, when the younger one becomes the king, what happens to the elder one? You think elder one is really happy? The elder one may not actually verbalize it, may not articulate the dissatisfaction, but there is something which is going on in his mind, and that is what? Oh my God, life has been so unfair to me. I should have been the king, and now, what was my fault? Why did I become blind? I was born blind. And not only I was born blind, life did not treat me well, then it took away the kingdom from me. So there is this resentment with which Dhritarashtra lives. Now, Pandu, the younger brother, is very aware of this fact. They were all psychologically very aware. So therefore, from time to time, what Pandu did is to kind of a little bit nourish his sense of well-being. So he would go to the forest and give the kingdom to be ruled by the elder brother who was blind in his absence. So what that will do is make Dhritarashtra feel a little better, right? That okay, at least I didn't become the king, but for time to time I get to rule the kingdom. Now, Pandu, the younger brother, himself, this is a story, Mahabharata, stories within stories within stories within stories, to show how everybody's life is connected to so many events. So therefore, Pandu, when he was young, he had gone hunting in the forest, and he heard, near the water body, some noise. So Pandu thought that there was some bird or an animal, and what he did is he released an arrow. And when he released an arrow, he heard the scream of a human. So he went running, and he saw that there was this a sage, a very evolved human being with his wife, and Pandu's arrow had pierced both husband and wife. So this also shows, knowingly or unknowingly, we do things. And what they end up doing is so much more than what we ever expected. And then what do these old couple who was dying? They said that we did not harm you at all. We were not bothering you at all. But you caused our death, and one has to, that nobody is free from the consequences of one's actions. Known and unknown. So therefore, you'll have to pay for this. And the way in which you will pay is, now that, don't ask me how did they know. That is the story, right? They said, if you are with your wife, that will be your last day. If you're intimate with your wife, that will be your last day. So now, Pandu had to what? Basically, what? He couldn't be close to his wife. He had two wives. One is Kunti and the other one is Madhuri. So in the forest, what happened is, so he should be childless, right? Because he can't be with any woman. That would be his last day. But he had 5 sons. Kunti, how? Yeah, how? So he had 5 sons and one of them was Arjuna. And how did they come? How did they appear? So there is another story. There are stories within stories. They came because his wife Kunti, there was some sage who had come home and she really served him well, she looked after him and all that. So the sage was very happy with how she behaved with him. So he gave her a boon, and the boon was, you can have sons just by looking at whichever devata means any force you want. You look at it and you will get the son. This was the boon she got. A little bit of a fantasy, but doesn't matter. Now, as she got it, she went out and she wanted to verify whether it is true or not. So she looked at the sun, the sun, the solar, right? And came one little boy. His name was Karna. And she was what? Devastated. Why? Because she was not even married. In India that matters. Right? And she was young. And she didn't know what to do with this little son because she felt so ashamed. And she felt like, oh, who can I share this with? So what she does is, she puts this little boy in the bank of the river. And then she prays and she says, what?
Like Moses.
Ah, really? So that I didn't know. So that story you have to tell. But after this. So therefore, leaves him by the river and prays and says, please take care of it. I'm not able to I'm not able to tell everyone that this is my son, so she lives in abundance. Helpless. So now, this Karna was picked up by a charioteer and he is raised by them. But the same thing which was such a difficult event for Kunti came to her help when she could not be close to her husband. When she was married and Pandu could not be intimate with her. And so there she used this boon again to have 5 kids. 5 Pandavas. The eldest was Yudhishthir, came from Lord Yama. You know Lord Yama, the Lord of Death. Then the second one, Bhima, came from Vayu, the Lord of Wind. The third one, Arjuna, came from Indra, the King of Heavens. And the other 2, Nakul and Sahadev, came from 2 twins, Ashwini Kumar, 2 Devatas which are brothers. So this is how she got 5 kids. So one time, Pandu, who is the king, and his wife Kunti and the other wife Madri and the 5 kids were in the forest. And Dhritarashtra was ruling, the blind king, not the king, the blind brother, who was ruling the kingdom in his absence. What happened is, Pandu got really attracted to his second wife, not Kunti but the other one, Madri. And he became intimate and Pandu died. Then Kunti became widow with 5 kids and they were all in forest. So they go back to the kingdom without the king because the king is dead. Now the next question is, who becomes the next king? So therefore there is a rivalry. The rivalry is that technically the eldest son of the present king, which is what Pandu's eldest son, who's Yudhishthir, should become the king. That's a rule. But now the eldest son of Dhritarashtra, who's Duryodhana, he says, this is not fair. I can understand that my father could not be the king, even though he was elder, because he was blind. But now, I am his eldest son and I am not blind. So why should I not become the king? So he says, I want to be the king. So that means there was some kind of a conflict between who would become the king. On one hand, it was Yudhishthir according to the books, according to the rules, and on the other hand, Duryodhana wanted to be the king. Now, you had to look for some other solution. So what they did is, there is another rule. It said, in case of conflict, then whoever is the eldest of the two, that person should be the king. So that means they had to ascertain who's older, Yudhishthir or Duryodhana. So even by the second standard, Yudhishthir should have got the kingdom. But Duryodhana said, no way. I want to be the king, and I want, who are they? And he started being very, very stubborn. So what happened is the father gave in. But somebody intervened and said, you can't just take the whole kingdom, divide the kingdom in two parts. You rule some part and give the other part to your brothers, 5 brothers who are, who lost their father. So Duryodhana very reluctantly says, okay. But he divides the kingdom in a very unfair manner. He keeps the majority of the kingdom, which was beautiful, and he gives one little barren part, which had nothing, to his 5 brothers. It was called Indraprastha. That little part that they got, and these 5 brothers with their wife and with their mother who had become widowed, they just kind of, they were a little bit helpless, they were powerless, and also they felt, okay, let him have it. And so they go and settle in this little region, which is within the kingdom, and they are the king there. But there was hardly anything there. So what they did is, they worked really hard and they made it very prosperous. So over the years, that region which was barren and it had nothing in it, it became very prosperous. And a lot of people started going there and it started becoming really good. So now Duryodhana begins to notice that. And you think he feels very happy about it? He feels jealous again. Because he cannot even tolerate that little part that he had given back, thinking that it is nothing, it is becoming very good now. So now he plots to eliminate these Pandavas. He says, I don't want them because how will I get this back? I myself have given it, I can't ask for it back. So what is the easiest solution? Kill them. Easy, right? So what he does is, he makes a plan. He builds a wax palace, and he invites all these 5 brothers to this wax palace, and his plan was, as they are inside, he will light fire and the whole thing will burn. But the 5 brothers came to know about this plan, so therefore they had built what underground tunnel. This is like Bollywood. Full of action, lots of things happening. Everybody is very active, right? So therefore, they escaped from the tunnel, and then they were alive. So now Duryodhana said, oh my God, my plan flopped. So now I have to find another way to take back the kingdom from them. So the second plan was, he had his uncle Shakuni, and Shakuni was his maternal uncle, and he said, let's call them to play a game of dice. And Shakuni had the capacity to manipulate the dice in a way that he would always win. So he knew how to cheat the game. So therefore, Duryodhana got an invitation to play the game of dice, and there was a rule saying that when the king is invited by another king to do something, then you have to honor that. So he followed that rule very blindly, and he went. And the game of dice started. And obviously, because his maternal uncle knew how to cheat, what happened is, Yudhishthir started losing the game. So that means he betted first his different things in his kingdom, then the entire kingdom. He lost everything. Then he wanted to quit. He says, now I've lost everything. Duryodhana told him, you haven't lost everything yet. What have I not lost? You have still your brothers. So he started gambling his brothers. And each of the 4 brothers was lost. Then Duryodhana said, now, okay, even if you lost your brothers, you are still there. He betted himself in a hope that one game and there will be a turnaround. But there was no turnaround. He lost himself, then he wanted to quit again. And Duryodhana said, there is still something remaining. He said, what? Your wife, Draupadi. And then what? He betted her and she was lost. When Draupadi was lost, she was not in the court where the game was being played. She was in her chamber, in her own room. And Duryodhana's younger brother was asked to go and bring her. And he tells her, you have to come to the court. And she is a strong woman. She says, what? No, I will not go. Until my husband calls me, I will not go. And what he does is, he drags her by her hair and brings her to the court. Then, Duryodhana tells in front of everyone that she has to be disrobed. Now, in that court, there are a lot of people who are sitting. There was one which is Bhishma, is their grandfather. Then there was Vidur, there was Dronacharya, there were all the people who were sitting in the court. So first thing, as Dushasana begins to disrobe Draupadi, she goes to the court and she tells all these people, she says, you are all sitting here. You are elderly people, highly respected, highly committed to dharma. And are you going to just watch me being disrobed? Are you not going to intervene? She asks them, and they somehow say, whether they verbally say or not say, they say they couldn't do anything in this case. Why not? Why couldn't they do anything? They all wanted to be good, clean human beings. But still they felt helpless because they thought about the problem differently. What they thought to themselves is that Yudhishthir had fully the free will to stop the game anytime. Nobody forced him. He could have always said no. Even if he said no, 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 he could have said no. So, he could have stopped the game anytime. But somehow he got pressured by his brother, and he, using his own free will, began to continue to gamble. So now he has to pay for it. This is how they thought, and this is why they sat. They thought it was dharma. Dharma means the right thing to do. Otherwise, what will happen is, if I think you've done something wrong and I start giving you justice, is this justice? So this is what they said, that it is your choice and you have to pay for it. So they sat there. When they sat there, she used her own reasoning again. And she asked the court, who did Yudhishthir lose first? Himself or me? And the court said that Yudhishthir lost himself first. Then she said, if somebody has lost himself, he is already a slave. And what right does the slave have to gamble somebody else's life? He has no right. So therefore, this whole thing is void. She was intelligent and she really thought about it. The first thing didn't work, and the second thing she tried, and it was a good argument. But nobody listened to her. Oh. So that means then there was a last resort. She helped herself to the extent that she could. When she felt that she could not help herself anymore, what did she do? Prayer. Prayer to whom? To Krishna. And Lord Krishna, there is a scene, beautiful scene. He was not physically present, but we'll see who is Lord Krishna, we'll see that. But he was there, and as she prayed to him, Lord Krishna did not hesitate for a second to help her. Why? Because he was also thinking about dharma, what is right. But his interpretation of dharma was far more evolved than others' interpretation. Because he said, from the beginning, the game was not a fair game. Shakuni was cheating all along. So that means, if the whole game is a cheat, then what is the need for them to follow the rule? So therefore, he helped Draupadi. And especially through a game of cheating, if a woman is being abused, you can't stand and watch. So therefore, he helps her. He helps her in a way which is a very creative way. How does he help her? They are disrobing her, so they are taking out her sari. And what he does is keeps providing more and more and more and more material. So what happens is, there is never an end. The sari never comes to an end. And then they are all exhausted and they fall. Now, so that means Draupadi is saved. Now, but the question still is that these princes have lost, the king and the princes have lost the game. Now what? So Duryodhana says, you all go in the forest for 12 years. This is the thing. You've lost the game, you go to the forest for 12 years. 13th year, you have to be incognito. Incognito means you can't be recognized by me. If on the 13th year I am able to find you out, again you have to go for next 12 years. In case I don't find you out, then you can get your kingdom back. That is the deal. So they all go to the forest. They are all, 12 years pass. 13th year, they have to be incognito. So what they do is, they go to a neighboring king's place, and Yudhishthira becomes the king's advisor because he is very bright. So he becomes the advisor of the king. Bhima becomes the cook because he's shown to be big and he loves eating, so he becomes the cook. Arjuna becomes the teacher of dance and music to the princess. And Nakul and Sahadev, one looks after the cows and the other looks after the horse. So this is how they spend the 13th year not recognized. Now Duryodhana in the meantime is desperately searching for Arjuna because he has no intention of giving back the kingdom. So he says, if I find them out in the 13th year, again they have to go back for next 12 years and that will finish them. So he's searching, he has all the spies, he has all the messengers who are supposed to find his 5 brothers. And one of them comes and reports and says his neighboring king has these 5 really quite exceptional men who are helping him. So Duryodhana says that could be them, but he can't just enter the kingdom and check it out. So what he does is, he conquers the kingdom. Now when the king has to go for the war, 5 Pandavas, they feel a sense of loyalty. That they have given them, that the king has given them shelter. So they have to protect him against the attack. So they go there and Duryodhana sees them and immediately recognizes them. So Duryodhana is ecstatic. He says, wow, I found you out. But then the question comes, when did he find them out? So the 13th year was just finished. Thank God. The 13th year was just over, but you think Duryodhana will say, yeah, 13th year is over? No. He says, no, the 13th year is not yet over. So you have to go back to the forest. Now, the 5 Pandavas have been letting go. The first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth time. Was it solving any problem? Was Duryodhana being reformed? No, he was becoming greedier and greedier and more unreasonable. So therefore, now Lord Krishna said, this time and even they felt they can't completely let go again. Can't just quietly go back to the forest for 12 years. They have to do something. So now they said, okay, let's, Lord Krishna himself offered himself and said, I will go to negotiate. Negotiate in a way that we can, avoid any confrontation. See, he goes as a messenger of the 5 Pandavas to speak to Duryodhana. And he says, you know what, you have such a huge kingdom. They have only one little part. Give them back. Already 13th year is over. Why do you want to fight? They spent 12 years in the forest. Give it back. And he says, no. I can't give that back. No way. Then Lord Krishna, as a negotiator, says, okay, don't give back the whole of kingdom, which itself was a very small part. Give back 5 different regions, districts of that kingdom, and give each one of them one district so they can rule, and then you can take the rest. Duryodhana said no. Then Lord Krishna said, okay, if you don't want to give 5 different districts, give only 5 different small villages. Let each one have 1 village. And Duryodhana said no. Then he said, okay, let's give them only 1 village with 5 houses. Duryodhana said no. Then 1 house with 5 rooms. No. Then Duryodhana said, if they want an ounce of the kingdom back, they have to fight. Then Lord Krishna comes to Pandavas and says, my negotiations have failed. Couldn't do it. Even 1 ounce of land I could not get back. So now the war is declared. War is declared because you can't let somebody who is so unreasonable get away again and again and again and again without any resistance. So therefore the war was declared. Now what happened is each side of the war, they knew it was going to be a huge war. It was not going to be a small war. So each one tries to get the allies, like people on your side. So you get these different kings on your side so that you become bigger and bigger. So both of them go and they get different kings to join with them. Now the question is, both of them, Duryodhana and Yudhishthir, they both want Lord Krishna's help also, because Lord Krishna himself was a king. So both of them go Arjuna goes on behalf of Yudhishthira. So Arjuna and Duryodhana, they both go to see Lord Krishna and ask for his help. When they enter, the first comes Duryodhana. He enters first. And when he enters, Lord Krishna is lying down and he's sleeping. And then comes Arjuna and he sits. He sits also. When Lord Krishna opens his eyes, he sees Arjuna first because Arjuna was sitting at his feet and Duryodhana was sitting by his head. So he tells Duryodhana immediately, as soon as he wakes up, he says, you know, I have come to ask for help and I came first. But Lord Krishna says, but you may have come first, but I saw Arjuna first. So Arjuna gets to choose. And the choice is, on one hand, my entire army, all the weapons, everything, and on the other hand, me alone, with no army, no weapon, and I will also not fight. What a choice. What? Is it an equal choice? On one side, non-fighting Krishna, and on the other side, the entire army with all the weapons and all the strength. Now, Arjuna gets to choose first. So, what will he choose? Now, Duryodhana is thinking, he knew that Arjuna and Lord Krishna are good friends, and they are connected as cousins also. So, therefore, he is thinking, I hope Arjuna is an emotional fool. He gets carried away by his relationship with Lord Krishna. And he will choose Krishna, which is non-fighting Krishna, which is so useless. And if he does so, if he makes an emotional choice, then what will happen to me? I'll get the whole army. And I'll get all the weapons. So he was just waiting for Arjuna to make a mistake in decision making. We make decisions based on what we understand and what we value. Now, Arjuna, on the other hand, he was thinking, because he had to first make the decision. And he said, I have all the skills in the world. I have all the weapons that I want. I have a huge army. I lack nothing. But what will make a difference between victory and defeat is on whose side Lord Krishna is. So therefore, for him it was a no option. He chose non-fighting Krishna. So that means both of them got exactly what they want. Duryodhana was so happy that Arjuna fell into this trap. And Arjuna was so happy because for him, the only thing which mattered which will decide between victory and defeat is Lord Krishna's. So therefore, both of them walked away really happy. Duryodhana got the entire army of Lord Krishna and Arjuna got Lord Krishna. Now, the battlefield. On the day of the battlefield, now, how is Arjuna going to use Lord Krishna, a non-fighting Krishna? What is he going to do with him? He asked Lord Krishna to be his charioteer. Run the show. So therefore, Arjuna has a charioteer who is Lord Krishna. Now, the scene opens as the whole Gita starts with this battle scene. The first verse of Bhagavad Gita is, not, it's a dialogue between Lord Krishna and Arjuna. But the first verse of Bhagavad Gita starts with Dhritarashtra. Who is Dhritarashtra? The blind man who could not stop his son from being what? Highly unfair to his own cousins. He cannot participate in the war because he's blind, but he's very curious as to what's happening in the battlefield. So his own charioteer, his name is Sanjaya, he also cannot, he is choosing to stay with Dhritarashtra. So Dhritarashtra is asking Sanjaya, and the first verse of Bhagavad Gita, I will chant, I am not included here. Dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsavaha mamakav pandavaschaiva kim akurvata Sanjaya. This is the first shloka of Bhagavad Gita, where Dhritarashtra is asking Sanjaya, hey, what is happening in this battlefield? And the way he describes this battlefield is Dharma Kshetra. Kurukshetra is the battlefield. He uses an adjective for this battlefield. A battlefield where the war is being fought for Dharma. Dharma Kshetra. It's not an ordinary battle. Generally the battles are fought for what? Increasing your power, increasing your kingdom, all of that. He recognizes that this war is fought for Dharma. But if the war is fought for Dharma, which side of the Dharma his own sons are? Which side of Dharma? Duryodhana is on which side of Dharma? Adharma. Means he knows very well that his sons are not on the right side of Dharma. Then the question is, why doesn't he intervene? He could have told Duryodhana, hey, this is being extremely giddy, give up, at least give them little bit. But he doesn't do it. And this is what the verse itself says, Mamakav Pandavaschaiva. He's asking Sanjaya, what is happening between Mamaka, means my people, and who are these my people? His sons, and Pandava. Who is Pandava? His own brother's son, but they seem like what? Other people to him. What does this show about Duryodhana? There are few things that this first verse of the Gita shows. First, that Dhritarashtra himself had what? A certain amount of resentment for not having the kingdom. He himself was not able to what? Actually vocalize that resentment. But when his son began to want the kingdom, he became what? The passive accomplice. Passive accomplice means what? You don't stop your son actively and say this is not right. So that means Dhritarashtra is living his own dream through what? Through his son. That is one reason to be the king. This is almost like Shakespeare. You know Shakespeare? His plays are all like this. Very interesting why people behave the way they do. So now, that is one reason why he did not. The second reason is that even if you know something is right or wrong, when it comes to other people, it's very easy to say, oh, this is right and this is wrong. When it comes to your own people, then what happens? Yeah, you're blinded by what is right and what is wrong, begins to be a little bit fuzzy. We tend to justify, or we tend to kind of, twist stories to support our people. And this is where, I know quite a few business families in India. And nowadays, in the second generation, what happens is that there are a lot of breakups because there is a joint family business and the next generation. And you hear the same, you hear the story from each side, and each side twists the story. Their commitment is not to see what is, their commitment is to what? Protect their interest. So that's why the facts get all mixed up. You think that you are being objective. Nobody says I'm lying. Nobody says that I'm cheating. Both sides convince themselves that I'm right. This is what we call a human mind, which is tricky. Tricky mind because you convince yourself of facts. You twist facts to suit yourself. So therefore, this is what Dhritarashtra was doing. So therefore, his weakness and his love for his sons made him to be not intervening and doing what needs to be done. So this is Dhritarashtra's state of mind. Now Sanjaya has to reply as to what is going on in the battlefield. So Sanjaya first goes to Duryodhana, tells Dhritarashtra what Duryodhana is doing in the battlefield. So Duryodhana is going to his, I will not spend too much time because I want to come back. So I'll skip a little bit, don't worry. Huh?
It's a very long story.
Long story, yes. So now he goes and Duryodhana is getting all the people ready for the war. And he wants to give his best. He gives a pep talk so that everybody gives their best. Then the scene moves to Arjuna. And Arjuna is happening what Arjuna is doing. So the verses describe Arjuna tells Lord Krishna to place his chariot in a way that he can see who all he has to fight against. So Lord Krishna very strategically places the chariot in front so that he can see the entire army of Duryodhana with whom he has to fight. What happens to Arjuna? He breaks down. He totally breaks down and he says, I see nothing but my own people on the other side. I see my grandfather, I see my cousins, I see all the people, my teacher. All these people are, I have to fight against them. Look at this. Dhritarashtra's Mamaka, my people, included what? Only his sons. And Pandu's sons became what? Other people. Arjuna's Mamaka, my people, included what? Everyone. His cousins were his people in his vision. So therefore, Arjuna, not only he breaks down, but in few verses of the Gita, he describes his state. Sidanti mama gatrani muhyam cha parishusyati. He explains himself by saying that my mouth is drying up. He very vividly explains his state. That Gandiva, which is his weapon, are falling from my hand. My mouth is drying up. My heart is beating fast. I'm unable to speak. He doesn't have any qualms about hiding what he feels. He's in touch with his emotional being. He describes in detail how he's feeling. And he says, I don't want to fight. Now, what do you think is Lord Krishna's answer? If Lord Krishna's answer was, yeah, that's great, that's true that they are your cousins, what would have happened? there would not have been Bhagavad Gita. There was just nothing, everybody goes home, then the thing is over. That's why you need a story. You need to understand the situations within situations within situations which lead to that situation, and you have to make a decision. And how are you going to make the decision? So now he tells Lord Krishna, I don't want to fight. Lord Krishna, the first time he says, what is this, Arjuna? Now that the climax has come, years and years you were treated not fairly. Now the final situation has come when you have to, respond. Now you want to run away from the situation? So give up this weakness and get up and fight. Do what needs to be done. Fight means do what needs to be done. Now, Arjuna, if he had said, okay, I'm going to fight, again there would not have been Gita. Arjuna persists. And Arjuna tells him a little bit more about why he doesn't want to fight. He says, it's not because I'm a coward, that's why I don't want to fight. It's also not because I'm afraid of them that I don't want to fight. I really have compassion. That is the first thing. The second thing he gives, in that state of mind, he gives 3 more reasons why he did not want to fight. The second reason he gives is, he says, it's not only my cousins that they are going to die, but if I were to win the war, then what? I have to kill what? Everybody who is on the opposite side. So that means all the other kings, all the other soldiers, all the other people, commanders, they all are going to be destroyed if I were to fight. So not only my people are going to be gone, but there is going to be a mass destruction. Second reason. The third reason he says, look at this is Arjuna. In that state of the mind, his capacity to think. He says, the third reason that I don't want to fight is, imagine that I win the war and what happens? What is going to be the society after the war? Most of the men are all killed. And the society will have only widows and orphans. And what kind of a kingdom am I going to rule? All dysfunctional, with so many people highly bereaved, with so much loss. Do you think I'm going to be happy being the king of that kingdom where there is hardly anybody? All the men are gone. And everybody is struggling. So this is why he says, I don't want to fight because I can't imagine what the society is going to be like after the war. And the fourth reason he gives is, he says, if I, through my own choice, is going to make the decision which is going to have such a long-term repercussions, then what will I get in return? So therefore, he gives what? That I cannot be happy. He understands that there are laws in the universe in the way that if you create so much harm and create so much destruction, you have to face the consequences. You can't just get away. So he says, what will happen to me? My life will be miserable as a result of doing so much harm to others. So 4 reasons why he did not want to fight. Then what happens is, Arjuna, after having said that, is this a good analysis? You think he did a good analysis of giving 4 different reasons why he didn't want to fight? Yes. Seems so, right? Now, he could have just said, I am so clever and I've analyzed the situation very well and in depth and looking at the long-term thing, so therefore I just don't want to do it. What he does is, later on, he tells Lord Krishna, this is what I think, but am I confused about what I'm thinking? Is there any other way of looking at the problem? So he describes himself as Dharma Sammuda Cheta. What is Dharma Sammuda Cheta? He describes himself as he may be confused about what is needed to be done in this situation. This is a wise person. You can analyze a problem really well, but always give it what? A chance to see it from somebody else's standpoint. Just because you have a high capacity to look into things, you don't become arrogant and say, I have considered everything and I think it is right, therefore I am going to do it. Lord Krishna would have just followed Arjuna because he was only a charioteer. But because he asked Lord Krishna, am I looking at this situation properly or am I confused? What is he doing? He's opening the door. Do we do it? Most of the time we think we are right and this is what it is and we are going to do it. Especially if we are smart and we are capable of thinking. There are very few people who say, hey, this is what I think, but is it right or not? Can you tell me what you think? So this is what he asks. Then second thing that Arjuna asks is, he thinks further. So he says, now you tell me if this is the right response in that situation. That is the first question. The second question he asks is the fundamental human question that Upanishads are talking about. What is that question of Upanishad? What will give me what? Fulfillment. What was the word Upanishad say? What will give me fulfillment? What will help me get rid of my sorrows? What will disintegrate my suffering forever? You give me that knowledge. Two questions from Arjuna. One is, what should I do in this situation? This is called situational problem. And that situational problem was so acute, it was such a huge proportion that it leads for him to ask a second question. He says, whether I win the war or I lose the war, I don't see how I can be happy. It's nothing to do about what I should do and what I should not do. There is one more question, and that is, no matter what I do, I see how I cannot be fulfilled. And if I cannot be fulfilled by any outcome, then what can I do for that fulfillment? That is what we call the fundamental human problem. And Lord Krishna begins to answer. Now he has to answer two questions of Arjuna. One is what I should do in this situation, and second is what? The knowledge which will give you him the final fulfillment. Which of the two do you think he will answer first? The second is a situational?
No.
The fundamental. Yes. So he answers the fundamental question first. What will give you the final fulfillment? I will chant, and then I know 7:30 is the break time. So I will chant the verse, and then I will start the teaching from the next. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Ashojananvashocastvam Pragnavadanshcha bhashase gataso na gatasunschа nanushocanti panditaha. This is a beautiful verse where Lord Krishna declares the teaching begins. The fundamental human problem is addressed first. And he says, Panditaha na anushocanti. What does it mean? The wise people. Pandita means wise people do not grieve. That's a big statement. Right? For what? Gata sumscha, agata sumscha. For people who are gone and people who are not yet gone. Right? So this is what he says, and therefore, ashocha nanvashochastva. You are grieving for something which doesn't deserve to be grieved for. But you speak like prajna eva vadanscha bhashase. You are speaking like a wise person. He's speaking like a wise person because both God. Why is Arjuna not wise? Because if you are a pandita, if you are a wise person, then there is what? Panditaha na anushocanti. They don't have grief. No matter what happens. Because death is one thing that we all feel grieved for. So wise people, if they don't feel grief for that, then what to talk of other things? Now, so that means if you use this definition, Arjuna is wise or not wise? He has a lot of grief, right? So therefore, he is not wise. But he says, you are speaking like a wise person. Why is he saying that you are speaking like a wise person? Because both Duryodhana and Arjuna are not wise. But do you see the difference between the two? Do you see the difference between Duryodhana and Arjuna? How is Duryodhana? Only thinking about himself and his greed and his more and more kingdom. And what is Arjuna thinking about?
The big picture.
The big picture. So therefore, he says, Arjuna, you are not yet wise, but you are speaking like a wise person because you are analyzing the problem really well. So now the question is, why? How is it that the wise person doesn't have a grief? Is it that the wise person is trying to just block all the emotions and say, oh, no matter what happens, I'm not going to have grief? Is it? No. Or no? Wonderful. Thank God it is not like that. Otherwise, we will all be bottling up all our emotions and pretending we are wise people. Nothing affects us. That's not what Lord Krishna is saying. Lord Krishna is talking about the wise people having different what? What is Upanishad? Understanding about the nature of Atma. It makes you free from sorrow. What is the word Upanishad? Not because of something else, but by knowing the true nature of I. So the wise people know the true nature of I, in light of which the grieving goes away. So, what is that true nature of Atma? We will see after the break. 7:30, no? You want to break? Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti.